This is Boxing Tickets NI in association with SB Sports and Chaco. We're here at the Fighter Hotel. We're delighted to be joined by a legendary cut man of the game, Ian Jumbo Johnson. How are you, mate?
Very well, sir, thank you.
How long have you been, probably not giving your proper age away somewhat, but how long have you been doing obviously, how first of all did you get started in boxing, and how long have you been actually doing what you do?
I started many years ago, about 30 years ago, working at some amateur clubs, and I just thought, I like this, I want to go a little bit further. So I took myself and learnt from the Boxing Board of Control books, rules and regulations, and I started doing some work for Matchroom on other circumstances, i.e. a bit of driving, a bit of security and stuff like that. Excuse me. And then I took my licence and I thought, go for it. So they asked me if I would work with them, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
And as did you say, as the 90s?
Yeah, so, yeah. 1996 was my first show with Matchroom.
So you pretty much had Barry and Eddie both together?
Oh, Barry was the first year, and then Eddie obviously come along later. But I'd done 3 years working elsewhere with amateur stuff and that. But no, Barry was a lovely man, and Eddie's, I'll get on all right with Eddie.
I guess it's like anything, obviously he's followed in his father's footsteps. Obviously been involved in boxing for so long and everything else. Is it still enjoyable as it was for you sort of starting out? I guess obviously there's tricks of the trade you sort of know now that you probably pass on to others coming through, but how have you found, obviously, as time's developed, because sometimes people lose a love of the sport and things like that, how have you found things throughout your time?
I could never fall out of love with this sport. I love it. I've been very lucky to work with some of the best there is in the business, and also there's been people that have contacted me that want to learn. Dave Milner, Natalie Lewis, Matt Warner, Neil Dempsey, Matt Upton, all these people, and they've now gone on and are doing their own thing with fighters because they're good at what they do. I'm no prima donna, but they come to me and ask me for help. I want it to carry on. I want the people to have the best there is in future years. So, I've been in the game 30, so I'm 63 years old this May. So in 30 years' time, if they're still doing what I'm doing at my age, it's great, because then you've got people who know what they're talking about, know what they're doing. And that's important. You get people coming into the game that haven't done anything. I mean, our first 4 years in the game, I was not earning money, just simply because I was trying to get myself into the frame. Driving, people would say, I do it. I say, I do that for this much, and I wasn't even breaking even. But then after about 3-4 years, things started picking up. And I've done Katie Taylor, was obviously, I've been to Dubai, Saudi with Philip Hergovich. I've worked with Hergovich many times, Lawrence Okoli. I do most of Shane McGuigan's boys and girls. I'm very lucky. I feel blessed and honoured that people actually ask me.
It's obviously, it's probably not the easiest job. Sometimes, obviously, a lot of people get squeamish around blood and everything else. When did you? Because obviously, when you come into it and things like that, you probably are not sure what you were like for your blood sort of threshold. Like you see people ringside at fights, and obviously clarets flying about, and they're going, oh. How did, obviously, I guess it's like something now that it's just life, and I guess that's what you get paid for, is they fix people up. If it's a boring fight with no cuts, you're not really, I guess, probably doing your job to your full maximum.
Listen, it's weird you ask that question, because you're only as good as your last fight. And one thing is, you've got to learn on the run, because there's nothing you can practice to do this. But what I did do, I read up on the central nervous system, pump into the brain and the head and the coolant to try and slow it down. Because when the bell goes, the time they get to your corner and sit down, say 5-6 seconds, then you get 10 seconds at the end. So really, literally, you might get between 45 and 50 seconds to work. So clean, pressure, do what you have to do, and then work on the cut. So, if you can keep that central nervous system cold and iced between rounds, then you've got half a chance of stopping it. You might not stop it completely, but what you will do is slow it down enough for them to stay in the game and possibly go on and win it. And like I said before, Ryan Burnett's cut, when he got cut, I done what I had to do. He'd never been cut. He went out then and boxed a brilliant fight, knowing that he'd got the cut and he'd never been cut before. He never panicked. And that is the sign of a true professional. He believed in what I was doing, and I definitely believed in what he was doing.
I guess sometimes it's probably an underappreciated sort of part of the sport. You know, a cup man, you probably see him more recently now that obviously cup men become the probably most important tool they have, because, you know, like when you say with Ryan Burnett, he'd never been cut before, you need to have someone there with the experience when a cut happens where you go, I know how to fix this is a 2-second job, don't worry about it, the next round you're going to be back to normal. Has there been any cuts that did you sort of fear? I guess obviously the head clashes is probably a big one, but it's...
The worst cut I've ever had was a WBF light middleweight title fight at Wolverhampton Civic Centre between Marcus Portman, 6'2", and a Hungarian guy called Joseph Matocci. They clashed heads and it was a little split, and then a punch made it a bit worse, and then they headbutted again and it split the eyelid. He came back to the corner, I pressured it, opened it, and it like hit me, and I just held it and looked at Ian John Lewis, and he come and had a look. It was the right thing to do. I had to call him over because 16 internal stitches, 16 external stitches, you know. And what it is when I said you've got to learn on the run, the people that have come to me like Dave, Natalie, Neil, Matt and all that, they've all had to learn on the run, or they come along and watch. And that's a big thing. If you can get to fights and watch what the cut men are doing, take in what you think's right, take in what you think's wrong, and then discard it. I still learn now. You're still learning. Jamie Sheldon, great cut man. Adam Gigley, Jimmy Tibbs, you know, all these people, Tommy Mack, all these people are great cut men. But you only get recognised on what you've done when you do it well. If you don't stop that, then they go, well, he didn't do a very good job on that cut. I thought he was supposed to be a professional cut man. Sometimes people don't realise how hard things are to stop. They don't always stop. Our adrenaline is only 1,000 to 1. Not like some of the other places in the world where they're double the strength. So you have to deal with pressure, coolant, and the adrenaline.
How do you prepare sometimes for some of the... Because I think probably one of the ones I would remember the most, probably Barry Jack. I think maybe he had a bad head clash and it was like the centre of the head. It nearly looked like somebody had kneed him or elbowed him. But I remember him being a really big, strong one in the centre of his head. How do you prepare sometimes? Because like there's probably cuts... Well, over 30 years I've been in the sport. There's probably you've probably seen everything. But how do you prepare sometimes for a cut, knowing, well, if this happens, I know how to get on with it? I guess it's just experience, is it?
It is experience, and I don't look beyond, you know, whatever I'm doing. I don't think, oh, I hope you don't get cut here. It gets cut, I've got to deal with it. I have different size swabs, small, medium, large, and nasal. So it is a bigger cut. Like Badou Jack's was a little bit bigger than what Ryan's was, but the same kind of thing. I think the worst cut really that was the Klitschko one with Lewis. That was a bad cut, you know, and that was, I think, the right decision because it was gaping. But you've got to learn on the run, and you can only learn by being in there and doing it. Blood doesn't faze me, it doesn't bother me. So, you know, it's good. Because if you are a blood person, it's not good. You're in the wrong job.
I can definitely remember sitting ringside at some fights. I think it was Stephen Ward and Liam Conroy at the Ulster Hall, and for about 2 weeks afterwards, I was still cleaning blood off the laptop. And I was obviously ringside, but I was about 4 or 5 foot back. A lot of fans sort of sometimes probably go, you know, fights are stopped and cuts in different ways. Is it probably, I guess, is it you sort of have to learn the right words to sometimes say to a referee, or does it, with the referee sometimes, do they know by your experience whether, do you know what, that's actually all right, that they have to trust you? How do you build that relationship up where they can go, I know what I'm talking about more probably than what a ref can?
I honestly believe the more experienced you are, the referee will give you a little bit more of a chance to work on it. I'm not saying that other people wouldn't get the chance, but they've seen what work you've done before. And don't forget, the referee's the only one that can stop the fight. You know, so if he thinks it's bad, then he'll stop it. Or he might even ask the doctor, the ringside doctor. But you don't get any favours, but they will give you, I believe, a little bit more time to work on it, depending. They'll come and have a look in between rounds, and you deal with it. You know, if they say, can we have a look at it? Yeah, give me a few more seconds, please, because I want to hold that pressure. Yeah, that's okay. That's it. Off you go.
It's definitely a very intriguing part of the sport. Obviously, speaking about tonight, obviously a massive card here for Wood Conlon. I know obviously you're in quite a few corners tonight. Who are you doing cutsman for tonight?
I'm doing the cuts for Grant Smith's young lad, I can't remember his name to be quite
the
honest. Yeah. And obviously I'm in the corner for Leewood. I done Lee's last fight when he won the title, and Ben's been good enough and nice enough to ask me back to do it again this time.
And obviously, probably not that you want to see cuts sometimes in fights, but I guess that's where you keep branching yourself out. You know, we're obviously not going to ask predictions on fights because it's probably sometimes your own assessment of what you think fights. You know, winners and losers, you always have to keep them to a side sometimes because you're in other corners and things like that. But it's a great card tonight in the Nottingham Arena. I guess it's great for Nottingham in itself to obviously have big time boxing back.
Definitely. I can remember when Cole Fox fought Lucien Boutte. This was the hotel that Team Boutte stayed in, and Cole done some great shows at the arena. So this fight tonight, the card tonight's good. I think it'll be a cracking main event, and may the best man win.
Definitely is, and obviously I know it's going to be, I think, about 60-40 split sort of in favour of Leewood, but obviously a lot of Irish fans there. Always brings a good atmosphere as well. I guess probably just finally one final question, probably for people maybe might be considering where they might not be a boxer, but they want to get involved in the sport and somehow. What sort of advice would you pass on to someone that might decide, you know what, I want to be a cutman or a cutswoman?
My honest advice would be, like I said to Dave and Natalie and all the other boys, Neil and that, before you do it, you've got to investigate into where you can find a team to work with. Because sometimes everybody has a cut man. Some don't, but 90% do. So, you know, you've got to make sure you don't waste your time and your money. You've got to find a gym because it's hard work. There's so many people wanting to be a cut man or do a cut man now. Years ago there wasn't. You had Denny Mancini, Mickey Williamson, you know, Jimmy Tibbs, Ernie Fossey, people like that. But now there's loads of cut men.
Which is obviously great for the sport, and I guess the one thing with amateur boxing sometimes is because there's head guards and things like that, you don't really have the opportunity. So it's probably finding a gym to sort of work with and get a trial period and go and give me a chance. Probably hoping not to get cuts, but watching other people do it.
Yeah, exactly. But also seeing the amateurs now, they don't do head guards, do they, for the seniors anymore? So that's one way to go. Go to an amateur club. Try to help them out, see what you can learn and do. Same with the hand wrapping, you've got to wrap hands, practice on yourself or whatever what. So it's a must-do thing. You can't go in blind, otherwise you're never going to get anywhere.
Yes. But Ian, listen, obviously thanks very much for your time. Obviously it's been a pleasure. With a legend, obviously, within the sport, we're obviously hoping you're still going to be about for another 30 years to come. And obviously we hope you enjoy what you can see of the boxing tonight.
I will do. Thank you very much for the chance to be interviewed. Thank you.
No problem. Cheers. Thank you.